My name is Clara. It was a very cold Tuesday morning, the kind of morning that made you want to stay in bed. But I was excited. I was on a long train journey, a special trip from London all the way to Edinburgh. It was my first proper holiday in a long time, and I felt happy. I had a window seat in carriage 7. It was my favorite kind of seat. The train started to move slowly, then faster and faster. Soon, the city buildings disappeared, and green fields and trees began to fly past. They looked like green and brown blurs outside my window. It was so peaceful. My compartment was small, but it was very comfortable. It had a soft seat, a small table, and a big window. I had everything I needed: a new book, a warm, soft blanket, and a steaming cup of tea. The tea was hot and sweet, just how I liked it. I thought, this is a perfect start to my holiday. Other people were also in carriage 7. Across from me sat an old man. He was very quiet, almost silent. He wore a simple gray hat and a thick, dark coat. He spent most of his time reading a large newspaper. His name was Mr. Peterson. He looked kind, with gentle eyes, but he rarely looked up from his paper. I wondered what he was reading. Near the door, a few seats away, was a man in a very expensive dark suit. He looked busy and important. He talked loudly on his mobile phone for a long time. His voice was deep and sometimes a little angry. His name was Mr. Davies. He often left our carriage to go to the dining car. I noticed he ate a lot, always ordering the biggest meals. He seemed to enjoy showing off his money. Further down the carriage, a young couple sat together. They laughed a lot, and their voices were light and happy. They held hands and often looked at each other with smiles. Their names were Leo and Sophie. They had a small pack of cards and were playing a game, sometimes arguing playfully about the rules. They seemed very much in love. The train was warm and cozy. The sun, now higher in the sky, came through the window, making a warm patch on my blanket. The gentle rocking of the train and the soft hum of the wheels made me feel very sleepy. I finished my tea, put my book down, and closed my eyes for just a moment. I thought I would just rest my eyes, not sleep. My peaceful rest did not last long. The train went into a very long, very dark tunnel. Suddenly, it became incredibly noisy. The sound of the train wheels on the tracks grew louder and louder, echoing off the tunnel walls. It was like a giant roar. Then, just for a second, the light inside the train went out completely. It was pitch black. My eyes flew open, but I could see nothing. Then, the lights flickered and came back on, bright again. But just as the light returned, I heard a terrible, piercing sound. It was a scream, a woman's scream. It was loud, sharp, and full of fear. It cut through the noise of the train, making my heart jump. My eyes were wide open now, and I was fully awake. The train rushed out of the dark tunnel, and bright daylight filled the windows again. The noise of the tunnel slowly faded. Everyone in carriage 7 looked at each other. Their faces were confused and scared. "What was that?" Mr. Peterson asked, his voice trembling. His face, usually calm, was now very white. He looked truly frightened. Leo and Sophie, the young couple, stopped playing their cards. The cards lay forgotten on their small table. Sophie looked very scared, her eyes big and round. Leo, trying to be brave, stood up slowly. He looked towards the end of the carriage where the sound had come from. Then a voice from the next compartment, just beyond the door, cried out again. It was a woman's voice, full of panic. "Help! Please help! Oh no!" The conductor, Mr. Miller, appeared quickly. He was a tall man, strong and usually calm, with a kind, serious face. He came running down the aisle, his steps quick and heavy. He went straight to the compartment where the voice had come from. We all, without thinking, followed him. We needed to know what had happened. Inside, we saw a truly terrible sight. Mr. Davies, the loud businessman, was lying on the floor. He was not moving at all. His expensive dark suit was wrinkled, and there was a dark red mark growing bigger on his white shirt. It was blood. A woman, Mrs. Gable, was kneeling next to him. She was crying loudly, her hands shaking. He's gone," she whispered, tears running down her face. Someone killed him. Oh, dear God." The train was still moving, rushing through the countryside. We were in the middle of nowhere, hours from any big station. A murder had just happened, and the killer was still on the train, perhaps even in our carriage. A cold fear spread through all of us. Mr. Miller, the conductor, took control of the situation immediately. His kind face was now very serious and determined. "Nobody leaves this carriage," he announced loudly, his voice firm. "Everyone stay where you are. I have already called the police. They will meet us at the next big station, King's Cross." King's Cross, London's busy train station, was still 2 long hours away. 2 hours. 2 hours trapped on a moving train with a killer. The thought was terrifying. The air in the carriage felt thick with fear and suspicion. Mrs. Gable, the woman who found Mr. Davies, was still very upset. She explained what she knew. "I was in my compartment, just reading my magazine," she said, her voice shaking. "I heard a strange sound, like a thud, and then the scream. I looked up and Mr. Davies was on the floor. I didn't see anyone else. It was so fast." She kept crying, unable to say more. Mr. Miller began to ask everyone questions, moving from person to person. He wrote down their answers in a small notebook. Mr. Peterson, the old man, spoke in a quiet, shaky voice. "I was reading my newspaper, just as always," he said. "I heard the scream, of course. It was very loud. But I saw nothing else. I was looking at my paper." He looked very sad, almost defeated. He kept his eyes down. Leo and Sophie, the young couple, spoke together. We were playing cards, just like we said, Leo explained, his arm around Sophie, who still looked very scared. We were together the whole time. We heard the scream, that's all. We didn't see anyone enter or leave his compartment. Sophie nodded, confirming his words. We were just so shocked, she added. I listened to everyone. My mind was racing. I thought about Mr. Davies. He was so loud, so direct. Did he have enemies? He seemed to make people angry easily. Then I remembered something important. Earlier in the journey, before the tunnel, Mr. Davies had been talking loudly on his phone. His voice was very angry. "You will not get my money," he had shouted into the phone. "Never! It's mine!" He sounded furious. Was this murder about money? Was someone angry enough to kill him for it? The idea sent a shiver down my spine. I am not a detective. I'm just Clara, a woman going on holiday. But I love reading detective stories. Now, I was in one. I decided I had to look for clues. The police would come, but what if I could find something now? I walked slowly towards Mr. Davies's compartment, trying to look casual. Mr. Miller was busy talking to Mrs. Gable. I looked inside. It was very messy. His big travel bag was open, and papers were everywhere, spilling out onto the floor. It looked like someone had searched through it quickly, in a hurry. Was someone looking for something specific? Money, perhaps? I looked carefully at the floor, near where Mr. Davies had fallen. My eyes scanned every inch. And then I saw it. A small, shiny button. It was lying there, almost hidden by a crumpled paper. It was a strange button, not a normal one. It was made of a dark, old-looking material, not plastic or metal. It looked like a button from a very old, heavy coat. It was definitely not from Mr. Davies's expensive suit. My mind started working. I immediately thought of Mr. Peterson. He had a very old, dark coat. I had noticed it when he first sat down. It was hanging on the hook in his compartment now. I looked at his coat from a distance, and there it was, a missing button. It was the same kind of button, the same dark old material. It matched perfectly. My heart began to beat very fast. Could it be Mr. Peterson? He seemed so kind, so quiet, so harmless. But sometimes the quietest people can hide the biggest secrets. Maybe he was too quiet? My suspicion grew. I also remembered something else, something very small but important. When the lights went out in the dark tunnel, just before the scream, I had heard a small click sound. It was very faint, not a normal train sound. It was like a small box closing or something being put away quickly. At the time, I didn't think much of it, but now it seemed very important. I looked at Mr. Peterson again. He was still sitting in his seat, pretending to read his newspaper. But his hands, holding the paper, were shaking slightly. His face was still pale. He looked nervous. He kept glancing up, then quickly looking down at his paper again. Was he afraid of being discovered? I knew I had to tell someone. I couldn't keep this to myself. I walked over to Mr. Miller, the conductor. He was still trying to calm Mrs. Gable. I waited for a moment, then touched his arm gently. "Mr. Miller," I said quietly, trying not to draw too much attention, "I think I know something important." I told him about the button. "I found this," I said, holding up the small, dark button in my palm. "It was on the floor, near Mr. Davies. And I noticed a missing button on Mr. Peterson's coat. It looks exactly the same." Mr. Miller's eyes widened slightly. He looked from the button in my hand to Mr. Peterson, who was still trying to hide behind his newspaper. Then I added, "And when the lights went out in the tunnel, I heard a small click sound. It wasn't a train sound. It sounded like something being put away quickly." Mr. Miller's face became even more serious. He walked slowly but directly to Mr. Peterson's seat. "Mr. Peterson," he said, his voice firm but not loud, "can I please see your coat?" Mr. Peterson looked up. His eyes met Mr. Miller's, and then mine. His face was still white, and his lips trembled. He slowly, very slowly, took his old, dark coat from the hook where it was hanging. He held it out, and there it was, clear for everyone to see. A missing button on the front, exactly where the button I found would fit. "Mr. Peterson," Mr. Miller said again, his voice now very direct, "why did you kill Mr. Davies?" Mr. Peterson dropped his newspaper. It fell to the floor with a soft rustle. He put his hands over his face and started to cry. Soft, broken sounds at first, then louder sobs. He took my money," he cried, his voice full of pain and anger. "My life savings, everything I had worked for my whole life. He promised to make it grow, to make me rich, but he lost it all. He said it was gone, all gone." He took his hands from his face. His eyes were red. "I saw him in the tunnel," he continued, his voice now a desperate whisper. "It was so dark. I was so angry. All my money, gone. I had a small, sharp letter opener in my pocket. I just did it. In the dark, no one could see." The click sound I heard was Mr. Peterson closing his small metal box where he kept the letter opener. He had done it in the complete darkness of the tunnel, hoping no one would notice, hoping to hide his crime. The motive was clear: revenge for his lost money. The final 2 hours of the journey felt like an eternity. The tension in Carriage 7 was still high, but now it was mixed with a strange sense of relief. The killer was known. Mr. Peterson sat quietly, guarded by Mr. Miller, still crying softly from time to time. No one spoke much. The happy laughter of Leo and Sophie was gone. The train continued its steady rhythm, carrying us towards King's Cross. Finally, the train began to slow down. The familiar sounds of a big city station grew louder. King's Cross! As the train pulled into the station, I could see flashing blue lights outside the windows. Many police cars were waiting on the platform. As soon as the train stopped, police officers rushed into Carriage 7. They were serious and professional. Mr. Peterson was taken away by the police. He looked very sad, his shoulders slumped, but there was also a strange calm about him, as if a heavy burden had been lifted. He told them everything, just as he had told us. The train journey continued to Edinburgh after a short delay, but it was different now. The atmosphere was quiet, almost somber. Everyone was still thinking about what had happened. The mystery was solved, but the shock remained. I looked out the window again. The trees were still green blurs, but now they seemed to pass by a different Clara. My holiday had started with a very big, very unexpected surprise. I was just Clara, a woman on a train, but for one unforgettable day, I had been a detective. It was a strange and exciting beginning to my holiday, one I would never forget.